Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of On the Bright Side. I'm your host, Caroline Susko, and I'm so glad you're here with me today, listening for another episode. And I think it's an episode we all need, not just you, not just me, everyone, whether we like it or not. Let's talk timelines today. Let's talk timelines! Because whether we notice it or not, we are all looking at each other and are like, okay, well, they're doing this, so I should be doing this. They're with him, so where's my boyfriend? And yada, yada, yada. And we're stuck on that and we focus on that. And that's not a life we should be living. And I have so much to say about timelines, especially being in post-grad and all that. So let's talk about it. All right. So since post-grad, what I've begun to learn and feel comfortable with is the idea that we're all on different timelines, that we're all on a different chapter and we're all on different pages of our own life book. And that's what I'm going to refer to that today. It's not our timeline anymore. It's not someone else's timeline anymore. It's our own life book. We are on our own chapters. And whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship or life paths, ours are all supposed to look different. There's no one right way and there's no one right timeline. And that's what we need to talk about, because as someone who recently graduated college, I've witnessed and been a part of many conversations of people feeling like they're behind, me feeling like I'm behind, and that they are on the right track yet, or that they're failing. So what does that mean, and who are we comparing that to, and why do we feel like this? Well, when we grew up, we were taught to go to school, to graduate, to get a 9-to-5, to get married, have kids, retire. And that was the order we were conditioned to learn and follow, because so many people back then felt like the need to stay in lines and follow order. But I don't know if you guys listened to my recent episode with Case, but me and Case were talking about this in one of our episodes. To some people, that's living in the gray, to just say, okay, this is the timeline, I'm going to follow it, check, check, check. And then people are so caught up living in that checklist that they don't even look in front of them and enjoy what they're doing right now. They're just looking to the next thing and just go through the motions. And if you're choosing and accepting to live this lifestyle because it's what people think is best for you, not what you think is best for you, or you think that's the one definition of defining success, you're not living your life in full color. You're doing what other people want you to do, and that's not how you should be living. Now, there are certain things where people happen to live that timeline and it works out for them. Great. I'm not saying it's a bad timeline, but I am saying that it's not a timeline for all of us. It's not a book for all of us. We all have our own book. We all are our own chapters. We all read at different paces and grow at different paces. And that's what we have to learn about in life, because it's all made up. There's no one recipe. Do you know how many recipes out there are to bake cookies? That's the same thing with life. There was never just one way. There was never this cookie cutter way that we all should know and follow and be a part of. It serves as an example, but you don't want to copy the example always. Sometimes you want to do your own thing, just like in school. So I've reached the time in my life where I'm 22 now, and stereotypically, I shouldn't be working at a boutique and instead be working a 9-to-5 job at a desk. And I've been told that. I've been graduated for 3 months now? And I've been told by multiple people, when are you getting a real job? What are you doing? Are you making enough money right now? I'm asked constantly, when are you going to get a quote unquote real job? I'm sorry, whoever made a cookie cutting meaning of what work is? I'm going to work, I'm putting in my hours, and just because I'm not working for a certain company or a company doesn't mean I'm not working. So when people would ask what I'm doing, I'd be like, oh, I'm working for myself right now. And then they'd be like, so when are you getting a real job? Why is society so quick to judge when it comes to what we do at what age? And I think that's such a big part of why we're conditioned to think that we have to live out this timeline, because if we're not living in it and people know that timeline, they're like, oh, well, when are you getting on that timeline? It looks like you're behind from my point of view. And I think the reason people are so judgmental of this timeline is because that's what they know. So when they see someone else not in that timeline, they're like, oh, well, when are you going to get on the timeline? And they don't mean it out of a place of hate or negativity. That's what they know. And they're genuinely asking most of the time. And we just live in this life now that post-grad we're supposed to have a quote unquote big girl job right when we graduate. And like I was thinking the other day, I work all week on the weekends too. And I sat down on the couch for maybe an hour. I was like, why do I feel guilty sitting on the couch because it's a quote unquote work day during the week? And why do I feel guilty that I'm watching TV instead of doing work always? Like, we shouldn't think that, okay, Monday through Friday is work day and then weekends to play. It's different for everyone, and we should give our grace the self to have lazy days and to not do work on days that are quote unquote work days. It's what works for us. It's not what works for the people around us, because what works for someone else may not work for you and vice versa. So we shouldn't feel guilty doing these things just because that's not the cookie cutter timeline. So I'm asked at 22 why I haven't had a boyfriend yet, and to go out there and go live life and have a boyfriend, because I quote unquote should have a boyfriend by now. And I'm like, okay, that may be your timeline and I'm so happy for you, but my timeline doesn't look like that right now. And I'm really focused on work right now, and I'm not really focused on other things that you may be focused on. And that's okay, because we're all on different timelines. We're all on different chapters. And honestly, if you look at this cookie cutter timeline, is it even working? Because this timeline says fall in love, be married by 26, have kids by 32, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, is the timeline even working for people? Because honestly, more than half of the nation is divorced right now. So why are we following this blueprint and saying, oh, get married by X age and that we should be doing this and this by this age, when more than half the time the success rate isn't there? So why do we put so much energy and focus into this quote unquote timeline if it's not even proving success every time? I'm here to tell you today that the only timeline you're on is your own. We think by 22 we should know exactly what we want to do for a career, have a significant other, and be fully matured, independent. Think about it like this. We are 2 years into our 20s. Think about a 2-year-old in the real world and how little they know. I am the 2-year-old of my 20s. I shouldn't have everything figured out, and neither should you. We all need to give ourselves grace and realize we are all living for the first time too. If you're 27, you're 7 years old in your 20s. You're learning, you're still growing. You know more than 2-year-old you knew, but you're still learning. So I really think we all need to think of our lives and our age like that, because this timeline that we have, that society has made for us, honestly just makes us feel worse about ourselves and not better, because even if we are on the right track for one thing, well, we sure better make sure it stays like that for the other track. And then like we could have so much greatness in front of us, but we're just focused on what we're missing on that timeline, what we haven't checked off yet. So I want us all to realize that instead of, oh my gosh, I'm 30 years old. Well, no, you're actually a newborn of your 30s. You're learning, you're growing, you're doing new things. So we're going to cover all these timelines and actually pull them apart so we can really see why we shouldn't be following timelines and why one timeline doesn't work for everyone. So let's talk careers first. When we graduate, people assume that the right thing to do is to have a job lined up because that's quote unquote successful. And I honestly don't know why we rush into it. And of course, sometimes there's financial needs behind that of why people are rushing. But sometimes people just jump into jobs just to say they have a full-time job. But we have our whole life to work. We have our entire life. So why are we rushing? Are we doing this for ourselves? I want you to ask yourself, are you going into this job for yourself, or are you going into this job to check the box, to have that post on LinkedIn to say, I have a big girl job now, look at me? Or are you doing it because you think it's going to be a good stepping stone, that you're going to get really good money out of this, that will help you ease a lot of worries? I hope you're doing it for those reasons and not for the reasons of, well, everyone else around me has a job, so I need to have a job now. Maybe you're waitressing and you're making really good money, but you think now because you're post-grad, you need to go get a 9-to-5 and jump into that area. Not because of financial reasons, but you feel like that's the next checkbox you have to check. Even if it's not working for you, even if it's not what you want to do, you're just worried about people pleasing the people of LinkedIn. Honestly, I deleted LinkedIn because I was like, I'm on my timeline. I don't need to see a bunch of people post grad telling me what they've accomplished and what they've done. Happy for you, but for me, I don't need that. And that's not necessarily, that's not saying I'm not happy for them. It's just saying I don't want to handle that and make myself feel bad that I'm on a different path and make myself feel like I'm not being successful because this isn't a normal path that a lot of people take. So when you go into these jobs, I want you to do them for you, do them for your own financial reasons, and don't do them just because you want to check off the box. Because living life is important too. Stop rushing to hit the next mark when there's so much to celebrate in the time you're in right now. After I graduated, I knew 9 to 5 wasn't my area right now. It wasn't aligning with my dreams, and it wasn't what I wanted to do at this moment right now. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to grind in different areas. I'm going to do a part-time job somewhere and have the financial stability, but still follow my dreams and not give up on that. So this summer, it's been me working a lot of little jobs here and there and then focusing full-time on social media. And some people are like, oh, like, why haven't you gotten a 9 to 5 job yet? And because I haven't gotten a 9 to 5 job, I've had more time to focus on little things, to grow my relationships with people. And I've gotten extremely close with some people because for me, in my chapter in my life book right now, that was what was meant for me, to focus on my relationships right now and growing them and not focus on career right now and maybe focus on that a little more down the line, or focus more on your dream right now and these relationships, and don't focus on a 9 to 5 job. Each chapter is different for us. Like maybe my chapter 5 is watering my relationships and making them stronger with people, while Susie's chapter 5 is working really hard in her corporate job. And those are both okay because our chapters lead us to the next chapter. They tell our full story, but we need those chapters to get to the next chapter or our life doesn't make sense. Timelines in relationship. You don't need X amount of no's to get a yes just because Susie got ghosted 3 times and then found her husband on time 4. You may find the love of your life the first time you go out, the first time you start dating, while Jane might take her 15th try and she learned life lessons along the way or really focused on her career and grew that. Do you see what I'm saying? Our life isn't an equation and we aren't just numbers being plugged into an equation. Life isn't an equation. Life isn't a timeline where we think just because it worked for Jane on time 3 means it's going to work for me on time 3. Life isn't an equation and we aren't those numbers. If we are plugged into an equation, we're different numbers. We're going to get a different answer each time. Just because I'm Caroline and that's Jane, if we get both plugged into that equation, we're not going to get the same answer. We're not going to get the same outcome because we're different numbers. We're different people. Oh my gosh, that was a great one. I'm so passionate about that. I love it. And it's crazy to make these comparisons that because we did what they did, we're going to get the same result, because that's not how life works. We have to focus on our own books. And just like there's outliers in math, there's outliers in life too. Sometimes things are going to be different for people. Sometimes people will have to put in a little work and get a huge career out of it. Or sometimes people will go on 100 dates and then find the one. Sometimes people will go on 1 date and find the one. But we all have our own book to focus on. And the thing I've had a problem with lately is focusing on other people's chapter. So this is why I said today, I need this episode too. So here's a little story time. I was talking to this guy and life was good. Life was great. And then I took a little scroll on TikTok and I saw this influencer and she was with her boyfriend and was talking about all the wonderful things he does. So I was like, well, the guy I'm talking to right now, he didn't bring me on this date. He doesn't write me letters. But then I was like, Caroline, they've been dating now for 3 years. You literally just started talking 3 weeks ago. You have to remember that people are on different timelines. They're in different places. They're doing different things. And that it takes time to get to these places. My brain has conditioned me to think, because of TikTok, because of social media, that my husband, I'm going to meet him and he's going to be obsessed with me from day one. And he's just going to, from day one on, he's going to be the perfect Prince Charming. And he is going to give me compliments every day and love me and bring me all these wonderful places and just show me all amazing kindness. Well, Caroline, no, that's That's not life. That's not a reality. There's ebbs and flows and changes and fights. And so I go onto TikTok, and mind you, before I'm like really confident with what's going on. So then I'm on TikTok, and I'll be honest, like I spiraled after, and I was like, all right, so like this isn't right. It's not working. He doesn't like me. Blah, 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 blah. Just chirping, chirping, chirping. And what I fail to realize now, like looking back, is that people post their highlights of their relationships and then have everyone thinking that a little fight or a miscommunication isn't normal and that he's not the one if it's not a perfect relationship where it's just growing and getting better every day. It's ebbs and flows, just like life, there's ebbs and flows. This one girl on TikTok, she was like, if he's not obsessed with you day one, he's not the one. All right, so now I'm out here thinking, because this is how my brain thinks, that if he's not obsessed with me day one, then he's not the one. I say it out loud and I sound like an absolute crazy person. Like, that would actually be weird if this guy was obsessed with you day one. It's just giving like stalker vibes if you're just obsessed with someone day one. Or if he's not buying you flowers or writing you love letters, he's not the one. We need to stop peeking in each other's chapters. Like, okay, that's one way of love, but is there a handbook that tells us it can only be that one way? That if he's not obsessed with us the first day, then he doesn't like us? That if he's not writing love letters to us by month 4, then he doesn't like us? Or if he's not bringing us on dates by time X, then no, it's over. No, there's not a handbook, and I needed to realize that. And then I couldn't even focus on this guy I was literally just talking to in front of me, because I was just so infatuated with these next steps, what people were saying was right at the right time, and what everyone should be doing to have a successful, perfect relationship down the line. So stop comparing yourself to others just because you think what they have is going to work for you. Remember, we're not all the same number. We're not all the same equation. And just because something works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for us. And sometimes what works for us is going to work for us because we're us and they're them. So take your path slow and do it all with grace. Don't rush just to check off the boxes just because that's what you think you need to do. Don't plug in other people's numbers because you think that's going to work in your equation. No, your chapter is your own chapter. Your book is your own book. Your equation is your own equation. You are the one that makes it work, not someone else's path, not someone else's story, not what's worked for someone else. What I like to think about is, remember when our teachers would give us a handout test at school and be like, okay, take your test. So there'd be some people that sped through their work and test and got a perfect score. There would be some people like me who would speed through the test and just bomb it. There would be some people who took their time and got 100. There would be some people who took their time and had absolutely no idea what they were doing and it didn't work out for them. That's how it is with life. That's how it is with our chapters. It's going to work for some people in some places. It's not going to work for some people in other places. A 9-to-5 may be working perfect for someone right now, but for someone else, a 9-to-5 might be the exact opposite of what they need. Maybe someone's on a successful 9-to-5 at age 23 because we didn't see the work they put in behind closed doors. We don't know what their chapter 3 looked like. Maybe they endured something really bad and it made them really focus on this and grow from this. You don't know what other people's books read. You don't know what other people's lives look like and how they read. You don't see people's lives at every stage, at every minute. Because remember, social media is the highlight. So you may be thinking, this is working out really good for them. They're at a 9-to-5. Their life looks really easy. They're having great time on the weekend. But again, it's the highlights. We're only showing the good parts of life on social media for the most part and not showing the struggles. So again, you're just speed reading through someone else's book. You don't know how they got there and you don't know what it took for them to get there. This just shows my social media example. On Instagram, there was this couple, and when I saw their posts, I was like, they are picture perfect. She got love letters, she gets flowers, you name it, like she got it. And they just looked so in love. It turns out that they actually don't have a great relationship and they don't have trust, and she can't go anywhere without him. Imagine that. And you wouldn't have known that from her Instagram photo saying happy 3 years. You wouldn't know that because we don't know everyone's books. We don't know everyone's lives. We don't know what everyone's experiencing. So stop comparing relationships, stop comparing your different lifestyles of others, and let what's working continue to work for you. Stop comparing yourself to the damn timeline. You don't need a car at age X, a house at age X, to be married by age X. It doesn't mean someone's ahead of you because they bought their dream home first. Well, maybe they saved every penny and sacrificed not going out all of high school to get that dream. 7 billion people cannot do the same thing. There's no one successful way to live life. There's no average time you have to have this done. There's no average time you have to have this done. We all have different needs. Some may be dead set on starting a career and really focused on that, whereas someone may be dead set on finding their significant other. So give yourself grace, and I want you to realize that. And maybe someone skipped to chapter 38, but we'll have to go back and read chapter 7 at a later date. Or maybe someone read every chapter 2 times, and so it slowly and surely was them getting there. We all read at different paces. We all grow at different paces. We all are our own books. And honestly, who coined this timeline anyway? What is early and what is late? Who decided that? And why is there a certain timeline to define what that success is? My aunt and uncle met later in life. They just had a baby and are perfectly happy together and are successful. My other aunt and uncle met younger, had kids earlier, and are still successful too. There's multiple timelines. My friends' moms are divorced, but now are with the love of their life, and they're now 55. It doesn't mean that just because you don't find the love of your life at age 25, like this stupid timeline says, then you're doomed for life. So honestly, I don't know whose timeline we are even comparing to. There's 7 billion plus timelines out there. 7 billion people. So there are 7 billion different timelines out there, all catering to a specific person. So stop looking at timelines that were created so long ago. It's 2024. Nothing is the same from that era. So why are we holding on to this timeline? It's your timeline and your schedule to live by. You don't have to look at other people's schedules and compare because you're on your own chapter. And we need to knock out these invisible timelines and deadlines, thinking that we need to know what exactly we're doing by what age, that we need to find our person by this age, that we need to have a house by this age. The only thing that brings is stress and resentment to each other because we're focused on what other people are doing more than what we're focused with ourselves. And we're so fixated on doing stuff the right way that we never take time to soak it up and enjoy it. We don't live the full life we should. We get mad at ourselves when we compare ourselves to others. We make a mistake and we see it as a negative instead of a positive in the right direction, and look to these cookie cutter terms to determine how we feel about our own lives. So stop feeling guilty, relaxing, or playing outside or do something besides work. Life isn't about work. It's a minuscule piece in the huge picture. Because when you die, people aren't going to remember you for being the one to achieve their dream career at 46 instead of 26, or for having kids at 19 instead of 27. They're going to remember you for the way you made them feel, and you're going to remember your life for the way you felt about it. I want you to give yourself grace, and I want you to give time to your passion. And just because it's not what everyone else is doing isn't mean it's not what you should be doing. So normalize starting over at 50. Normalize getting married at 42. Normalize finding your dream career at 12. And normalize that a 9-to-5 isn't the only path to success. Life doesn't end at 50. And I think that when we're young and post-grad, we think that this is it. Like, this is the time where I have to figure everything out and do all these things. I don't know why we think that by age 30, we have to have everything figured out and know our exact life path, because for so many people, we look at life now, and as people grow up ahead of us, and they're doing something completely different in 30 years, that they're with someone completely different in 30 years, that they're doing things completely different. 30 years is so much time to have a life-altering moment, to change something, to pivot. So I think we need to take the pressure off of us saying we need to have life figured out, because whether people say it or not, no one has their life figured out. No one knows exactly what they're going to do next and is on a successful timeline. They, to them, are like, I'm behind, because we compare, and we could be so successful, but we look at everyone else's lives and are like, well, I'm just not there yet. Some of the most successful people look at their lives and are like, oh, well, I'm not there yet. Celebrate people's wins at whatever age it is, and they'll celebrate your wins at whatever age it is. Life isn't supposed to be check, check, check. It's supposed to be living in the moment and doing things and having fun and growing from things and meeting people and pivoting from things you thought were your dream. That's what life is all about. So stop comparing yourself to other people's timelines, to other people's chapters, to other people's books, because what's yours will come to you. Because at the end of the day, what you do in this lifetime is amazing, and there's no number that takes away that sense of amazingness. Amazingness isn't a word, but I'm going to use it. Getting your degree at 59 is amazing. Not having kids and dedicating your love to your significant other is amazing. Finding your dream career at 60 is amazing. Don't let people dim that amazing thing just because of your age. Don't let people rush your timeline, and stop trying to catch up to someone else's timeline, to someone else's chapter, to stop trying to catch up when someone's on chapter 10 and you're only on chapter 8. Stop trying to read ahead or do everything you can so super quick and rush your life just to catch up to someone else. So be more present, celebrate others, and let them celebrate you too. Because what's yours will come to you at whatever time it's meant to come to you. And one day you'll wake up and realize this timeline was to serve only as one person's guide. Not a billion people, just one. Because there's how many timelines in this world? 7 billion plus. And it doesn't mean that we aren't successful because we aren't following that timeline, that we're doing things differently. There are so many means of success and how people get there. So I want you to give yourself grace. And if you take one thing out of this episode, think of your age right now. I'm 22. I'm a 2-year-old in my 20s. I'm learning. My mom is 52. She's a 2-year-old in her 50s. She's learning what life in her 50s looks like. My grandparents are 76. They're a 6-year-old in their 70s. They're learning. They're growing. We all have to give ourselves grace that we are a young person of that age. And we would expect that a 7-year-old makes mistakes, that a 7-year-old does things at their own pace, that a 7-year-old grows differently. We would expect a 7-year-old to not have their life together. We would expect they have a lot of learning to do and a lot of growing to do. And that's us for that decade of age. So stop focusing on other people's timeline, because your timeline is your timeline. And what's meant to be will come to you at the exact right time, just like what other people are getting right now is on their timeline. So at the end of the day, I hope this helped, because I've heard so many conversations about this and people being upset because someone has a 9-to-5 and they don't, or someone's in a relationship and they're not, or someone is buying their dream house at 25 and they're barely able to pay their bills. Life's different for everyone. Life moves and grooves differently for everyone, and that's what makes life so special. So that is where today's episode ends. I love you all, and I want you to realize I am so proud of you. You are doing exactly what you're meant to be doing right now, and I'm proud of you for that, and you should be too. And make sure you're following at On the Bright Side Podcast with 2Ds on Instagram for the latest notifications and updates. And if you like this episode, please take the time to give it a rate, to leave a comment, because that helps On the Bright Side get so many more opportunities. And I want to grow with you guys, and I want to make this to something we all love and have more opportunities with. So with that, I love you all so, so much. Remember, you are perfect, you are loved, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be. With that, remember to stay looking on the bright side, and I promise you it'll serve you really well. I love you guys. See you next time. Bye-bye. Okay, one more thing. The second I turned this mic off, I went to my phone and got a text that one of our favorite influencers got engaged. And I was like, yay! But again, this is what it serves as. We're on our own timelines. My favorite influencer may be getting married today at 26, but my other favorite influencer may be getting married at 42. That's how life works. I love it because life is beautiful like that. All right, love you guys. Bye.